If AI takes your job, will economies adopt a universal basic income paid to all humans? Well, this economist thinks so.
Basic income. Do you receive it for doing nothing and just sitting by the pool for a cocktail? Or is there some obligation to society to do good work in the community, for example?
It's becoming a more likely reality as tech stocks talk up AI adoption in this week's earnings reports.
But it doesn't seem that at the moment it's quite translating, obviously, to the bottom line.
And I have a surprise for you. It's my birthday today, so I'm giving you a gift. Stay tuned to the end to find out how you can be in to win it. It's Friday, the 28th of July, and you're watching Markets with Madison. I was shown the weirdest thing I think I've ever seen this week, and I have to share it with you. This is an orb. It's a biometric testing device that scans your eye's iris. Its purpose is to prove personhood, effectively identify humans from robots. It's created by none other than Sam Altman, the guy behind ChatGPT. His company, Tools for Humanity, has made it as part of the WorldCoin project, a master plan that went public this week to eventually pay people a universal basic income in a digital currency when AI takes our jobs. Let me rephrase. A payment simply for being human if you can prove that you are one. People around the world are already lining up to be verified, with one new person every 8 seconds being scanned by the orb. In a statement this week, Altman and his founder Alex Blanier said the payment would be funded by AI and, if successful, could drastically increase economic opportunity. Wild. But they're not the only ones who think we're heading for this kind of future. Salt Funds economist Bevan Graham expects this could happen here. Hey, Bevan.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, but this is pretty freaky. Do you think that a UBI is inevitable?
Well, it's not absolutely certain that we get there, but look, AI is certainly leading to a massive revolution in the labour force. But look, we've seen these revolutions before, Madison, and that there are always transitions happening in the labour market. And look, to a certain extent, we actually need AI to help us out of some of the current economic challenges that we have. We have aging populations, we have a very low rate of productivity growth around the world. And when you combine those two things, if we're going to maintain our current living standards, we need AI to give us that boost. So in the early stages, it's absolutely essential, but certainly there will be a transition then to maybe we do work less. And just in the way that the Industrial Revolution, was the genesis of the 40-hour week, maybe AI is the genesis of the 20-hour week. But you don't need to extrapolate it too far to get to a point where maybe there is more widespread loss of jobs. And in that case, there is a need for some form of a universal basic income. The question is, how is that going to be funded?
Okay, so say that AI does take many services jobs at least. How could a universal basic income be funded? Would it be funded by the productivity gains that AI would bring to companies, and then it would be a higher tax rate the government receives and they would give that back to us? Please explain.
Well, look, that is the big question for policymakers. As we move into this world and AI becomes more pervasive. I mean, there are existing current forms of taxation, but then when you think about it, if there's going to be less people in work, then obviously there's going to be less tax take. So there will be a question then about what other forms of taxation might be required to meet that obligation. And look, we've probably already talked about some of them in the past with various political parties, with various tax policies, wealth taxes, financial transaction taxes, and all that sort of thing. But I think with AI, the big question is, and this is why it's quite exciting about the what you were just explaining, or that evolution, is how do you capture the wealth that's created by AI that used to be captured by wage and salary earners, and how is that then put out into the economy in a way that funds that universal basic income?
So if that's the economics of it, then what would society potentially look like if you or I don't need to work? What, are we just off at a resort having cocktails? I mean, what would that look like?
Well, look, there's certainly more leisure time, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But look, there's going to be a lot of new jobs that come out of this. There are some existing jobs, Madison, that will still be required, and especially those jobs that require a deeper level of reasoning. Good business journalists, economists. We'll still need politicians. There'll still be plenty of jobs. There'll still be a lot of jobs out there. But certainly, I think we will have more leisure time. I think there is a question too when it comes to a universal basic income, just around the design and exactly how it then mitigates some of the risks around the fact, that we do need to have an incentive to work. There are actually productivity questions that arise from a universal basic income. Do you receive it for doing nothing and just sitting by the pool for a cocktail, or is there some obligation to society to do good work in the community, for example, that qualifies you, for a universal basic? So there are a lot of challenges around what the design of something like this would actually look like.
And also a UBI, the reason many economies haven't implemented it is because it could be inflationary, right? Everyone effectively gets the same stimulus check consistently. So that's a bit of a risk too, isn't it?
Look, there are already massive fiscal challenges, in the developed world. We're having to meet, governments are having to meet their commitments to climate change and net zero by 2050. We're dealing with the problems of climate change and infrastructure and building more resilient infrastructure. We're dealing with existing inequality problems, and look, all of those have a fiscal implication. And so you add another sort of transfer payment into that, and it does make that very, very challenging. And there will have to be some change in priorities for governments.
Do you think regulation can actually wrap its head around this, though? I mean, Bevan, we still haven't regulated crypto.
Oh, look, and therein lies the biggest challenge, and that is how AI is regulated. And you just mentioned the exact example, and we've talked often about the Wild West of crypto. I think there is a real risk that AI evolves in some way separate to what you might call the existing formal economy, and that it develops almost in parallel, but outside the regulatory environment and the ability of governments to tax, those entities. So again, there is a real issue for public policymakers to ensure that the evolution of AI stays part of the formal economy. The risk is, if you don't do that, you have this buoyant AI economy evolving down one path, but you have the old economy, withering, getting smaller, potentially dying. But that's where the tax bit comes from. So you can't have that separation occurring.
I don't know how to feel about it. I don't know if I should be excited or fearful. How do you feel about it?
Look, I'm not fearful about it because I'm 60. And I'm okay, I think for the rest of my career. But look, jokes aside, I think it's something that we need to embrace. The evolution of economies and jobs and industries has been with us forever, and I think this is the next iteration. And I think in the very early stages of it, we do need to embrace it. There are certainly challenges that are going to come with it, but that's the job of government, to make sure that that AI evolves in that regulated environment.
Guess we have to lean in. Thanks so much for your time and insights, Bevan. Very interesting. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Madison.
All the major tech companies that are hyped up on AI opportunities released their earnings this week. Microsoft, Meta and Alphabet, Google's parent company, all reported increased year-on-year revenue in their quarterly results. and they all talked about AI in their earnings calls. Google even released this video saying it believes AI will change the world. But Brian Wilmot from Stake says it's yet to flow through to their bottom lines. Brian, good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Good to see you, Maddie.
How obsessed are the mega cap tech stocks with AI currently?
I don't think it's just the mega cap tech stocks. I think it's the world is currently in an AI absolute hysteria. I mean, obviously the launch of ChatGPT and the fact that we as people could go in and start exploring the capabilities of AI really brought it to the fore of the cultural agenda and the conversation. But certainly tech stocks are riding that hype. We've seen positive movements in the markets across, the large tech stock companies like Google, Microsoft, who are sort of investing and talking heavily about their investments in AI. But it doesn't seem that at the moment it's quite translating obviously to the bottom line or in full clarity exactly what those strategies look like and what the practical applications of AI investment and AI being core to our growth strategies and things like that exactly look like on a step-by-step basis. There's obviously broad brush territories and you can see and imagine the applications, but yeah, in terms of that detail on the strategies, it's not necessarily quite there.
Talk me through those applications then. How are they saying that they could use it even if they're not actually doing it yet?
Yeah, so from my understanding, and I'm obviously not an AI expert or a technology expert, I'm more in the marketing space, but there sort of seems to be three key buckets. The first one is AI as a service. So for businesses, small, medium, large businesses around the world, will have an increasing need, or obviously always have a need for greater productivity or efficiencies or whatever it may be, and AI is obviously going to be an enabler of that. So if these technology companies can develop AIs that can be then shipped or custom built for these companies to then utilize in their own ways for their own processes, obviously there's a great service aspect toward AI. Then there's the cloud-based software, and you would see your infrastructure management or your server management or your instance management, and not being so manual in terms of how you manage the traffic that you require or the server space or whatever it might be. So there's improvements to the cloud infrastructure, and obviously Microsoft with their Azure product is a big player there. Google through GCP is a big player. So there's definitely a race to see who can improve the cloud service. And then finally, there's consumer applications. So what will the consumer interaction with AI be, or how will certain applications that exist already improve as a result of AI? So one that Microsoft talked to a lot and spoke to in their earnings report is their Office suite. So Word and Excel and PowerPoint and all those sorts of things, and how AI is going to be able to improve the customer experience on those fronts. So an example that I read, and I think that they had mentioned in their report, was around being able to turn a Word document. So say you've got a report that you've typed out some dot points, just saying to the AI, hey, can you please build a PowerPoint presentation for me off the basis of this? I want it to be 16 slides long and I want it to be light on text and high on imagery, for example, and it'll just spit that out. So obviously huge benefits from a consumer side as well.
What do you think will determine who wins this sort of so-called AI arms race? Will it be the best adopter of the AI, or will it be the best producer of models of AI?
I mean, I think it really comes down with everything. AI is another thematic, and obviously you've spent a lot of time in the markets. I'm sure you've seen all of the different trends that have come and gone, etc. I think it really comes down to what is the value to the end consumer going to be. So if you think about the cloud space, obviously technologists and companies that are heavy in terms of their utilization of cloud software and technology as requirements for servicing their clients, the best improvements that they can make, whether that's on the cost side or the efficacy or the efficiency side, it's really going to be about who can service their customers better. Similarly, on the customer application side, if Office can really leap ahead in terms of providing an employee with the capabilities like what I was just mentioning, then they just create that distance between the next best thing quite rapidly. So I think it's going to be a little bit of a mixture of both, but ultimately it's like, who is the target customer for your various services, whether that's AI as a service, whether it's cloud or consumer applications, and are you meeting those customer needs or enhancing their productivity or creating better experiences for that customer? And I think then just the market kicks in and going, customer selection starts to happen.
Say best case scenario, all those mega cap tech stocks, they win on all of those AI frontiers, right?
Yeah.
But I guess worst case, they could at least all win on the cloud vendor side, because even if they're not the winners of AI in the future, they would be the ones that have to hold and sell all of the space for it, correct? So they'd at least win on that front.
Look, I think they're in a great position generally, Microsoft, Google's, et cetera, to be spending huge amounts of money on innovation. I mean, Meta earnings came out last night or yesterday's market session in the US, and they were talking about their Reality Labs. I think it's Reality Labs.
It is Reality Labs.
Yeah, Reality Labs, which is where they're sort of investing in the metaverse and how AI fuels that, and their Quest headsets and all that sort of stuff. I think it made revenues of about 237 million, which sounds like a lot, but in the context of a $30 billion quarterly revenue, it's not a huge amount. But the loss on that was, I think, 3.8 or around their $1 billion. So they're investing huge amounts of money into AI technology. And so these large cap stocks are obviously so much more primed to be able to win in the AI space or invest heavily behind it. Plus, then it's about who's got the underlying product structure that AI can help accelerate. So with Google and Microsoft, they're leading in the cloud space. And obviously there's AWS as well. So if you've got these high penetration across some base layer products that you can then plug in AI to supercharge the efficacy or the efficiency or the value to the customer on those fronts, you're in a prime position, especially if you have the capital to go and invest significantly behind that AI.
It's all happening very quickly. When do you think we should expect to see some very clear winners?
It's a big question. I think like the development of AI is in its infancy. I think we don't even know what it's going to look like. I mean, there probably are people out there that know sort of the general trajectory, but even the experts in this field, it feels like one of those things that like, you know, doctors used to like suck blood from people as a way of solving certain problems. And it's like they were the experts at the time, but look how far medicine's come. I don't know if that's quite an apt analogy, but let's roll with it.
Tech companies are kind of like
yeah,
vampires.
Exactly. And it's kind of like we're at the beginning, we're working this stuff out, but we don't really know what it's going to look like in 10, 20 years. So I think what you'll start to see is piece by piece implementation of AI. Like we've already had machine learning for a long period of time. You think about Google Maps, that is kind of based on AI technology, the way that it can assess all the moving vehicles and how fast they're moving down different roads, and then it can use all of that to process and analyze and spit out, you know, the best route for you if you're going on a train or if you're going on in a car or you're walking. So AI has been around for a long period of time. So I think we'll just see these bit by bit implementations of new ways that it can enhance or provide, you know, benefit to whatever it is that we're doing. And I think at that point it will be, you know, who's doing it best, who's doing it quickest, in terms of that adoption, but then who's iterating fast and who's really focusing on the core needs of, again, that end consumer. And I think, you know, the market ultimately dictates who the winners and the losers are, but obviously there's a base layer of, you know, what is the tangible benefits, not just riding the hysteria wave or talking about AI as a concept and, you know, sort of exciting people with all the various possibilities. It's, you know, what are the tangible products or enhancements to your existing products that you're going to be able to deliver to a customer as a result of AI, and are they willing to pay for it, and to what degree are they willing to pay for it?
Ultimately, we'll wait and see. Thanks so much for your time, Brian.
No worries. Thank you very much.
All right, I promised you a giveaway, and here it is. Stake has given me 10 $50 US Wall Street vouchers to give away. To be in to win, I want you to email me with one stock that you'd hold for the next 28 years. That's my lifetime so far. You will need to have an active Stake account, but you can sign up just to get the offer. Now go put your money to work. Thanks for watching Markets with Madison, the New Zealand Herald show for interested investors. If you want to stay up to date with financial markets, click the subscribe button below, and you can watch our other episodes here. Stay up to date with all the business news and numbers as they land on nzherald.co.nz.